Hey guys, Moose here. We are back with another episode of Stonehearth in our Rayya's Children playthrough, and we've got another day where not too much happened. I really gotta start expanding well, that's actually kind of an interesting thing that happened. I really gotta start expanding my notes and getting a few more things in here, because it can't... Probably just doing game releases is gonna... I don't know, we've done okay so far. We haven't had too many issues, but eventually it's going to get a little stale, so we'll have to figure this out. Food is totally rotting. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. It seems like my farmers don't really do much farming. I'm a little bothered by this. Like, what if I say you guys can't do any hauling? What is going on? Why is it, like, jumping all over? That's so weird. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so now they're more likely to work. I don't know why they're prioritizing hauling over their job. That's very annoying. So we'll see if this works, and if it doesn't, we'll move them to hauling. It's no big deal either way. But yeah, today is the 19th of February, and let's see. 1 year ago today, Fire Emblem Fates came out. Apparently. I'm not sure about that, because there's Fates and there was one other, I think, or is Fates the third one? The, like, all-encompassing one that came out later that you're supposed to pay more money for, which is kind of sketchy. I'm sure Karen knows, but anyway, we already talked about Fire Emblem, like, not even a week ago, probably, so I'm going to skip out on that one. Soakweed Seeds, no thank you. Actually, it would be more than a week now, by now. Almost 2 weeks, even. But, what else happened? So... one interesting one is 2 years ago, Sega Networks, which was obviously a subsidiary of Sega, apparently got acquired by a different studio, which is very surprising. It's kind of... Sega is one of those big-name or historically one of those big-name developers. Not so much these days, for sure, but it's kind of messed up seeing them sell off parts of their company. That's kind of depressing. But also, frankly, if you've been following the stuff they've made, it's also not very surprising. As depressing as that may be. They're not too good, I don't think. They haven't really made much quality stuff in a very long time. I think they were... These doors are not working properly, but that's fine. I know exactly what's wrong with this, too. I think, anyway. It has something to do with the game's not recognizing that it's twice as wide as a normal door or something like that, so it's not glitching out, but it's not operating correctly. But yeah, Sega just hasn't been good in a while. There's what good Sega's like? Did Sega do Phantasy Star stuff? I think they did, right? Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 on the GameCube was fantastic. If I could find my GameCube tonight, I might actually boot that up and like fuck around with Karen in that and have some fun relaxing in the evening on a nice Saturday as I'm recording this, and have some fun, but I don't know where my GameCube... Well, actually I can get the Wii. I'm not even sure where that is, though. Kind of in the middle of moving, so things are in boxes, not all of it's actually here, so I'll have to figure out where all that stuff went. Yeah, this seems to be working for the farmers. I'm just worried that it's not going to work long term, but for now it's okay. But yeah, seeing Sega sell stuff off is a little bit sobering. It was 2 years ago, so it's been a while now, but they're not doing much, it seems. It's their own fault. They've kind of dropped the ball more than a few times. Sonic games are obviously not too hot these days, but it's depressing all the same to see, I suppose, let's say, once great company fail, as they have. Failed to adapt, you know? I think Mario and Sonic were probably the two big ones, platforming-wise, and they've kind of dropped the ball. Nintendo's still in there, obviously, they're doing fine, but Sega went the wrong way, I guess, and it just hasn't worked out for them. So, it's too bad, but, you know, that's gonna happen if you don't take care of things, and I think a lot of those companies from back then have really rested on their laurels in a really unfortunate way, and it's cost them big time. And I think Sega's just another example of that. Nintendo's getting there, to be honest. They've made some decisions that I would say are not good. I think let's do it like this. Oh no, let's not do that. Because I want... Okay, I know what I want to do now. Because that's going to be, there's crafting stuff there probably. So, actually, I will do it like this. And then, I think this is halfway between, no, it's not. I think I have to go like this. And then get rid of these. Empty it out. And then get rid of it. And then these two need to move forward one. So we'll do it as soon as they get moved. That's fine. But yeah, it's like Sony has had a lot of issues lately. They're not doing too hot. They've sold off a lot of stuff. Sony in general, not just their gaming stuff, but who else? Who are some of the other old companies? Namco Bandai? Or Namco, or not, maybe not. Atari. It's not really doing that much these days, I don't think. The old guard is dying. Seems like. I don't think Nintendo's going anywhere, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're having the best of times. Acorns, or we don't need them. We already have those. So it's, you know, it's sad, but it's also kind of good. Like, you don't want to see bad companies succeeding because that causes issues for everyone. You really want to see the good companies getting rewarded for what they're doing when they're doing some new stuff that's interesting and exciting for everyone, and if they're not going to take chances and make good games, then fuck them. Like, let them die. Okay, that is a giant zombie, okay. Let's go beat him up. Please follow orders. Okay, they are following orders. Good. Slowly, but they're doing it. So yeah, that's one thing that happened on this date 2 years ago, which is interesting. I think it's a minor thing, but it's indicative of a larger trend, which is that I think, and this is personal opinion, so I'm, you know, biased in saying this, but I feel like most of the really good games these days are mostly new developers that have come around in the last 5 to 10 years, and indie games are really where you see the really amazing stuff. And there's very few examples. For every amazing indie game, or for every amazing AAA game, which still unfortunately gets most of the attention, there's like 5 to 10 really fucking cool indie games. Like was Darkest Dungeon the first game from that developer? Just as an example to throw out there. That, to me, if that came out with, I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see, if that came out last year, that might be the best game of 2016 for me. Even though it's really not. And then you get into this weird ambiguity of like, oh, is it really 2016? Not really. I mean, you know, it's one of those situations, but it's fine. So, yeah, it's sad to see, but you know, this kind of thing happens if you don't take care of your business and make sure that you're continuing to adapt and change with the landscape of gaming. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna die. And we're starting to see companies pay for that because it's not such a hard to get into market anymore. You can really like have an indie developer put out an amazing game that sells amazingly. Like Stardew Valley is a good example. Darkest Dungeon's a good example. There's a lot of really good games that are absolutely amazing that have their own flavor and tone and everything that have nothing to do with these major devs. And I think you're starting to see people pay for that as they lose business. So I'm happy to see it, frankly. The other story that we have for today was something we already talked about indirectly, but not directly. And that is that on this date, 4 years ago, in 2013, Crysis 3 came out, which I've never even considered touching. I have no desire to play any Crysis games, but it's worth bringing up because that kind of Crysis was really big back in the day. For a lot, it was like oh, look, I'm such a hardcore gamer, look, I play Crysis. It was stupid, very, very stupid. I think that's an idiotic sentiment, but that's, you know, it's a thing. People are like that sometimes. So Crysis, however, overall has kind of been an interesting participant in the FPS landscape, in my opinion, which I don't really talk about anymore. I don't hear anyone talk about it. I don't hear anything or see anything about it that much. It's kind of just on its own, and I have to wonder, you know, is Crytek gonna do something else? Or have they done something else and I just haven't noticed? And they probably have done something else and I just haven't noticed. But it seems like that kind of game, people are starting to realize that I think EA can pull it off with Battlefield, and Activision or whatever shitty-ass companies making Call of Duty can keep doing their thing and making more stupid, bad Call of Duty games that are the same game that people have to pay another $60+ to buy, which pisses me off and frustrates me. They can make those realistic shooters, but I think we're moving to a place where those are not as popular. I think you're seeing more like games like Overwatch and Titanfall are more likely to be what people are looking for, the kind of more arcadey. And I know you could say Call of Duty is really arcadey, and that's very true, but it's also arcadey wrapped in this veil of trying to pretend that it's realistic. And I think that's a meaningful distinction. So, yeah, let's just make some reinforced doors. This is fine, we don't need that. Make like 20 of these, try and level up. I really want to make recurve bows. Buff up my archers a little. Get rid of those doors. But yeah, we're seeing, I think, less of those I mean, we got Battlefield 1, and that's cool. I actually appreciate that they made Battlefield 1 because it's you know, everyone is, Nazis get brought up all the time for a variety of reasons, including the current US president, which, right or wrong, is something that gets brought up. I don't want to comment on what I think about that because it's, I don't know, I think calling anyone a Nazi, unless they're actually literally a Nazi, can be contentious at best, but at the same time I see both sides. Basically I see both sides of it, so I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another because I don't think it's relevant. If you have an issue with someone and they do horrible things on a day-to-day basis, you do not need to compare them to other horrible people. You just need to say, hey, they do horrible things on a day-to-day basis, and you're set. So let's say that that's my perspective on that. But World War II just doesn't really get talked about. And by the way, like, the only good book I ever read, or not, that's bull, okay, I'm coming way over the top on that one. The only book that I ever read in school that I really legitimately enjoyed and thought was a very well-written book that was meaningful and impactful to me was All Quiet on the Western Front. And if you've never read it, I highly recommend reading it, because it is one of the few books that I think really conveys the horrors of war and how terrible it can be. And also the humanity that you find in it, because there's some really interesting passages about, one good one was, I think one of the protagonists like crawled into no man's land in between the trenches where they're all shooting at each other, and found an enemy soldier who he had shot or something, and he went through his pockets and found like pictures of his wife and family or something, and he was all really depressed. Is like, you're human, I wish we'd met outside of war, like, you know, really humanizing stuff, trying to kind of taking it out of the context of a bloody conflict, which it was, and kind of understanding that everyone involved in it is human. And that was a really powerful paragraph or chapter or whatever it was. And I think, you know, everyone can benefit from reading about that, because it's, I think especially in the US, and this is a tangent that I'm going to get off of shortly because this is way the hell outside of what I'm talking about here, but I think it's good to be exposed to that and understand that, you know, it's easy to say, oh, those people, those terrorists are over in that country, we need to go deal with them, like, you know, but people actually have to go physically deal with them, and that involves a lot of blood and guns, and it's horrifying. And there's a real serious cost, human cost, associated with doing those things, and you really have to, you know, have a more reasoned opinion about it than just saying fuck the people in the Middle East or something and saying, yeah, go bomb them. Because it's not that simple. And the people in the Middle East are, by and large, just people. Yes, there's a different culture. Yes, there's different religion, which I don't think matters. And there's a lot that goes on with that. And some of those people are in a situation where they get exposed to kind of unfortunate ideologies that lead them to do horrible things. And that's fine to prevent that and deal with them. But there's a lot of people over there that aren't that. So understanding that even when there's conflict that involves killing each other, people are still people, I think is an important lesson. Anyway, that went way dark. I'm sorry about that. That is not at all what I meant to talk about here. I forget. Oh, right. We were talking about realistic shooters and we started talking about World War II, World War One. Wow. Sorry about that, but I don't know. Interesting subject. And I really like All Quiet on the Western Front, so I enjoy talking about it. It's fine. Should probably get some ladders here so we can start using the roof, because I probably want to put storage up there as well, even though it's not really going to be very accessible. Or maybe I should do like the outdoorsy crafts like blacksmithing and such. This is unfortunate. That's actually really shitty. I think maybe if we... No, that's bad. Shit. All of them are wrong. I should have alternated the pattern. That's really unfortunate. Alright, well, I'll figure something out. Just one side will have that, and we'll go with that. Sell these doors. So, yeah, I think we're seeing more arcadey shooters succeeding, and I think a lot of the AAA ones are going to be the non-arcadey variety. This is so much better. We clearly just needed to disable hauling on them. That's working infinitely better than it was. But actually, regarding all that, the whole stuff I was talking about with shooters, one interesting article that I read recently was from, this is an old one, but it got reposted to Reddit, so, you know, of course. It's from like 2013 or something, it was pretty old, but the Red Orchestra 2 devs, Tripwire Interactive, they also did Killing Floor, which is a game that I really enjoy. I don't really like Killing Floor 2 that much, but the original Killing Floor was quite good. And I had a lot of fun with it. I got quite good at it. Probably one of the FPSs I've played more than almost any other. Probably top 5 for me. Great game. Very fun. I like kind of the co-op aspect of it. I wish we had more player versus AI games that were not shit. Because I prefer to work with people, because I'm not very good at PvP style stuff. So it's a little bit more fun to succeed as a team, I suppose. But they wrote an article basically saying when they had Call of Duty players, primarily people who primarily played Call of Duty, come in to playtest Red Orchestra, they consistently had this negative reaction, and their logic for why was very, very interesting, thinking about what would make them feel that way, what would make them think that, and it basically boiled down to the Call of Duty franchise basically thrives by putting players in a situation where they get rewarded for unskilled actions. And that sounds really insulting, I guess, but it basically means that the threshold to receive that endorphin rush that you get from getting a kill or getting a kill streak, you know, if you play Overwatch, you feel really good when you dominate. You know, when you're on fire and you get play of the game, it feels good. It feels good to be rewarded for that. So, you know, that's kind of what keeps you playing, that good feeling of, yeah, I'm winning, I'm succeeding. So getting that feeling with a very low bar to receive it really draws more people to a game. But there's a serious trade-off that comes into play there, because you have now given this player the expectation that they're awesome and they deserve that all the time. And any game that doesn't give it to them like that is going to not succeed at getting their attention, for the most part. It's a conditioning thing. So it creates a situation, it's a race to the bottom. So now you have to compete with that and say, well, shit, now I have to be that good. I have to give them that kind of... I think we're going to demolish this and rebuild it because it's not working. You have to do that, basically. You have to compete with that and give that kind of endorphin payout as easily, and that's not the kind of game Red Orchestra is. But there's no change that you could make to Red Orchestra that would make any of those players like it. So from their perspective, they were frustrated because what are they supposed to do? And they basically feel like they've the soul of FPS to a degree, which is not just such an easy thing. Like, it's a competitive, you know, who's the best at this shooter thing. Even, you know, Twitch shooters are one thing, and then you have more serious shooters like Arma and Red Orchestra, and then there's arcadey shooters like Overwatch, and you have this very nice variety of different types of games that all work differently. And And they all have some kind of skill involved, and they're different skills in a lot of situations. So some of them are a little bit more strategic, like Arma and Red Orchestra, where it's not as much about being really good at aiming, though I think Red Orchestra is. I think it's more, in Arma, it's more about putting together a good plan and executing it. It's more military, it's more tactical and strategic than it is just like Twitch shooter, which is something more like Titanfall 2 or Quake, I think, or Unreal, one of those games. Maybe not Quake. I never played Quake that much, so I don't know, but I believe that's the variety of shooter that it represents. So yeah, it's just interesting to kind of look at it as not just as Call of Duty, like not that good of a game and not that impressive, but it also seriously lowered the bar for what you can expect from first-person shooters, and as a result, there's like a very real cost that gets paid in the industry for that action. Like it causes problems because now people are not gonna enjoy the more in-depth and difficult games. And that, I think we all lose for that, because you get less depth in gaming as a result of that, and I think that's a tragedy. But anyway, that is going to have to do it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, even though we got kind of dark in the middle there. And I hope you'll join us for the next one as well. Take care.